welcome to my birth story video. I'm going to be telling you guys the story of how my daughter was born. She was born premature. She was born at 28 weeks. She was born at 28 and 6, so 28 weeks and 6 days. So almost 29. Hello, visitor. How are you? My cats are going to be in and out, I'm sure, throughout the entire video. She was born 28 and 6. She was 2 pounds, 2 ounces, and 14 inches long. I had severe pre-eclampsia, which is what caused her to be born prematurely. This is my first baby, so this is kind of all new. She's still in the NICU. She will be 1 month old tomorrow, and she's been in the NICU this whole time, so yeah. So that's a whole other story in itself. NICU life and being the mom of a NICU baby has clearly done wonders for my hair. But so anyways, I'm going to tell you the story of how she came into the world. So just a quick disclaimer before I get started with my story. I'm not a medical professional. I do not pretend to be one, and I don't want to give out any advice or to have anybody take anything I say as canon for themselves. Hello, another kitty. I have a lot of cats. And by a lot, I mean like 4, which is probably more than most people would think is an acceptable number, but we won't get into that. So I'm not a medical professional. I do not pretend to be one. Please do not take anything I say as advice for yourself. Consult your medical professionals, talk to your midwife, talk to your OB. Also, this story may be a little bit TMI. It's going to get a little, I'm going to talk about the things that happened to me. So if that could be triggering to you in any way, just know who you are, and make the best judgment call for yourself. So let's jump right in. I found out I was pregnant in May of 2020, which is very scary in the middle of a pandemic. I had a due date of January 23rd. I had a very normal pregnancy. For the most part, I had a few complications here and there, some bleeding early on, and throughout my second trimester, I had really bad heartburn and acid reflux, and I had up and down blood pressure, where it would be really high one day and then it would be really low another day. So, which turns out was hypertension. It was pretty normal, for the most part at least. I ended up being on restriction, which is like bed rest but modified, where you don't actually have to be in bed, you just kind of have to rest. And I did that for the better part of my first trimester and the very beginning of my second trimester, simply because she was threatened miscarriage throughout the entire first trimester, which should have been my first indication that she would probably come early. Our story actually begins at my 28-week appointment, so the first appointment of my third trimester. So I went to my 28-week appointment on Tuesday of the week that she was born, and when I got there, the receptionist told me that my OB actually was not feeling well and was going to go home, and so asked me if I would be okay with seeing his wife, who he practices with. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I ended up seeing her, and when I went in there, my blood pressure was a little elevated, and they found some protein in my urine, which, if you've ever been pregnant, you know, or if you have not been pregnant, you may not know. Once you're 22 weeks, usually when you go to your provider appointments, they're going to have you pee in a cup to test your urine for sugar and protein and stuff like that, just to make sure that you're healthy and that everything is good. So clearly there was something in my urine, a little bit of protein, which was a little concerning because up to that point I hadn't had anything. So for 6 weeks they were testing my urine and nothing was there, and then all of a sudden now there was something there. Before this, leading up to this appointment, I had vision changes, which is normal for pregnancy, but I was getting like little flares, like little black dots, like on the sides of my vision, and then also like on the top. Like if I was watching TV, I would just see like black little squiggles go that way, and then I would get these like white lightning bolts go across my vision field, which was like totally weird and crazy, but turns out completely normal with pregnancy. unless coupled with high blood pressure and severe swelling, which I did have swelling, but it wasn't severe. Not until we got much closer to the delivery was it severe. I went to my appointment. My blood pressure was a little bit elevated. It was like 136 over 92, 93, something like that, which they told me was not alarming, but it was kind of high, and it was in that zone where they were ready to start watching it and try to figure out what was going on. Because I had had the vision changes and off and on high blood pressure and and some swelling, my OB a couple weeks beforehand, it's important to know, I was seeing my OB every 2 weeks because I was a high-risk pregnancy. I was seeing him every 2 weeks. A couple weeks beforehand, I can't remember if it was exactly 2 weeks beforehand or if it was 4 weeks beforehand. I think I want to say it was 2 weeks. He had ordered panels to just have a baseline to compare to later to see if I was developing pre-eclampsia. So, because, vision changes, high blood pressure, swelling, that's pre-eclampsia. So anyways, I had those panels done, so she decided, let's go ahead and do panels again and just check everything and make sure everything's good. And I'm like, okay, cool, we'll do that. So, that was Tuesday, and I got my 28-week shot. So there's some shots that you have to get when you're pregnant that just kind of protect your baby, kind of fortify your immune system before you deliver. So anyways, I got the shot, and then the next day I woke up Wednesday and I went back to the hospital and got my blood work done. When we found out we were pregnant, we bought a house and we moved, which is typical for when you find out that you're expecting. We bought a house and we moved to a different city. So we moved about 40 minutes away from my doctor's office and from the hospital that I originally planned to give birth in. Yeah, so it was quite I went to my provider appointment, and I always made them in the late afternoon because it was so far away. So by the time I got done with my provider appointment, their lab was closed. So the next day I woke up and I went to the hospital and I got my labs drawn. I just got my labs drawn and I went home, and then the next day I went to work. While I was at work, they called me, and by they I mean the doctor's office. And so I was kind of like, okay, that's weird. Why are they calling me? So on my lunch break, I called them back, and they were like, oh yeah, there was some concerning stuff on your panels, and we're gonna need you to come back tomorrow, which was Friday. So I was kind of like, okay. So I went to my boss. I said, hey, the doctor says there's something going on with the baby. They want me to come back in tomorrow, so I'm gonna take tomorrow off too. And she was like, that's fine. And on Fridays, my doctor's office closes at 12, so I had to go early in the morning. And my husband works nights. But anyways, he can't go into the doctor's office, so I was kind of like, whatever, I'll take myself. It's not a big deal. He can't go in because of the pandemic, so he hasn't been into any of the doctor's appointments throughout this entire pregnancy. He did get to go to all the ultrasounds, though, and get to see her in the ultrasound, so that was cool. So then that was Thursday when they called me. I work at a hospital in registration, so I sit at the desk and I put my feet up underneath the desk and work on my stuff and whatever. So as the day was going on Thursday, I started to progressively feel worse. I developed a low-grade migraine, and Tylenol wasn't helping, which when you're pregnant, you can only take Tylenol. Most migraine medications are not safe for pregnancy. I know because I deal with migraines outside of pregnancy, and I can take anything that I would normally take for my migraine. So I had that migraine, it wouldn't go away, and I just kind of felt gross. Not oh, I'm gonna throw up or I have an upset stomach. I just felt drained and kind of groggy and just out of it. And I knew I had high blood pressure on Tuesday, so I was kind of maybe my blood pressure's back up again. Maybe that's why I feel so nasty. So then I noticed that my legs, not my feet and my ankles like usual, my legs, my calves, were so swollen. And they looked huge. I was literally oh my gosh, why are my legs so swollen? I've had them elevated all day. I'm drinking water. Then I thought, oh no, I'm retaining water. That's not good. What's going on here that I'm drinking so much water and then I'm retaining all of it in my legs. So I was kind of oh my gosh, Like, that's not a good thing. So the end of my shift rolls around, and I usually work 7 to 7, so I got off at 7 p.m. And I thought, I really don't feel good. Before I try to drive home, I think I'm going to go over to the ER and have them take my blood pressure just so I know what it is. So I had one of the girls in registration check me in and just say that I wanted my blood pressure taken. They took me back, they took my blood pressure, and I told them what was going on, that I was suspected for having pre-eclampsia, and they had my panels taken, and they drew my blood and all this stuff, and then they called me today and told me that there was something concerning and that I needed to go back and blah blah blah, and that I also was not feeling well, and before I got behind the wheel of my car, I wanted to be responsible and make sure that I wasn't going to pass out. The ER doctor's like, okay, well, do you like want to be a patient? Because if you want to be a patient, we don't have labor and delivery here, and we're gonna have to transfer you by ambulance to a hospital that does have labor and delivery and can handle pre-eclampsia, because we can't. And I was like, okay. That was kind of scary because my husband works at night, so he was already at work, and he works an hour away from where we live. So I was like, okay, I don't want to do that, but if we have to do that, I'll call my mother-in-law. It'll be fine. Then they took my blood pressure, and it was 152 over 105, which is the highest it has ever been for me. So I was kind of like, oh my gosh, like my blood pressure was really high. Like I have preeclampsia. Like what the heck is going on? And the ER doctor's like, yeah, I can't let you leave. Your blood pressure's far too high. And so I was like, okay. And so they called my OB's office and talked to the on-call doctor. And the on-call doctor told them just to give me some medicine, try to get my blood pressure to come down and send me home because I was going to go see my OB in the morning. So they gave me some medication. It brought my blood pressure down. Then I came home, but I still felt really nasty. So I called my husband and I told him, like, hey, here's what's going on. Tomorrow they want me to go to the doctor and I just don't feel comfortable driving myself. So could you come home early so you could get some sleep and then take me to the doctor in the morning? And he was like, it'll be fine. I will come home and I will take you to the doctor in the morning. And I was like, okay. So I went to bed at like 10:30, which my entire pregnancy I had really bad insomnia, and I would stay up until like 2 in the morning, even though I had to go to work at 7. Made no sense. Anyways, and I would be like exhausted at the end of my work day. I went to bed at 10:30 and passed out. Like I was asleep, like I was done for the day. And then so Kevin and I got up and we went to the doctor's office in the morning, and obviously he can't go in, so he went and sat in the car while I went inside. And I went up and my regular doctor was there, and he was like, cool, so your blood work showed that your acid levels were high. I think that's what he said. One of my levels were high, which is related to preeclampsia apparently, because he was like, basically at this point, you have preeclampsia. It's very early. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you on bed rest. No more work for you. It's going to be really strict. You're going to have to lay down and sleep for most of the day. And then he said that they were going to put me on a baby aspirin to try to keep my blood pressure down, and try to keep me pregnant as long as possible. But he did tell me he could see from what was going on that my baby would probably come early and that she would probably be born before or around 33 weeks. So I was kind of like, okay, awesome, like she will be here in a month, like that's fine. Like the beginning of November, I'll have the whole month of November to finish getting ready, finish her nursery off. And we had 2 baby showers. One that was Friday that I had the appointment. I had one the next day, Saturday, and then I had one the following weekend on Sunday. And they were COVID friendly showers. They were going to be like drive-by showers. So I felt kind of cheated. Like I was getting fake showers. But anyways, so that was the plan. So I was like, awesome, not a big deal. I can stay home. I can sleep. I can rest. I can do whatever the baby needs me to do. Which is, that's normal. That's what every mom says. When I got in and I was talking to my doctor and I was like, this is the plan. Awesome. I got it. I can do this. Then I said, well, did you see the note that I was in the ER last night. And he was like, "You're in the ER last night?" And I said, "Well, I work at a hospital, and so I wasn't feeling well last night, so I just hopped over to the ER and was like, 'Hey, will you take my blood pressure before I leave?'" And he was like, "Oh, okay." So he like opens up the thing and is like looking in the notes, and he goes, "This is your blood pressure from last night?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's my blood pressure from last night." And he's like, "Okay, we're gonna go to L&D right now." And I was like, "Right now? As in today?" I thought I had a month. "No, you need to go to L&D right now. If that was your blood pressure, you need to go right now." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Where's your husband?" And I was like, he's in the car." And he was like, "Okay, so go ahead, call your husband, have him meet you in L&D. We're gonna have to transfer you to a bigger hospital." And I was so upset. I was devastated. I was like, why do I have to go to a bigger hospital? Like, my birth plan. Like, I have this plan to give birth here. Like, I don't understand. And he said, "No, your baby's too young. You're gonna need a bigger NICU." And so I was like, "Wait, so the baby's coming now?" And he was like, "Well, we need to keep you in the hospital and monitor you, because if your blood pressure is that high, you're at a risk for seizing." So I was like, "Oh, okay." I called my husband. He met me in L&D, and we got all checked in and everything, and they hooked me up to the monitors, hooked the baby up, and they gave me medication for my blood pressure to try to bring it down, and then they gave me magnesium. And when they give you magnesium, they have to give you a catheter, because you like can't move when you have magnesium, and you can't eat anything or drink anything. You can like suck on ice chips and stuff, which I understand why they say you can't eat anything, because your stomach cannot handle anything when you're on magnesium. Like, you will throw everything up that you eat. It's awful. They call an ambulance. The ambulance is like, it's gonna take us an hour to get there, and then we'll get you transferred. So I was like, okay. It was really funny because he asked me which hospital I wanted to go to. Did I want to go to the university teaching hospital, or did I want to go to a different one? And I was like, the hospital full of children who are learning how to practice medicine, or the hospital full of professionals. I don't know. I'm sure that the university hospital would have been fine, but it was just something about trying to have people younger than me tell me how to deliver my baby, and trying to deliver my baby just did not sound like a good idea to me at all. We got transferred to the hospital. I made Kevin go to Walmart and get headphones, because I was like, I'm going to be in labor, so I'm going to need headphones. He was like, "You're crazy. Why am I going to Walmart?" I got to the bigger hospital. They got me up to the L&D room, and the doctors came in, and they were talking to me, and they did an assessment. They checked me out, made sure I was good. My blood pressures had come way down because I was on that medication for so long. And before they transferred me to this other hospital, like, I got down to L&D at 10:30, and they didn't get me to the other hospital until almost 4 p.m. But it takes an hour to drive there, so you gotta count that in, I guess, and the hour it took the ambulance to get there, so whatever. Anyways, when I got to L&D, they gave me a steroid shot to help develop the baby. Now, I would highly recommend that if you're in a situation like this and they say your baby's gonna come early, just get the steroid shot. It really does not hurt the baby. I'm sure there's people who would be against it. I don't want to start anything. But I believe that getting the steroid shot is what helped make my baby so strong and made her so viable. I know she was past the threshold of a huge survival rate. Like, her survival rate went from 68% at 26 weeks to like 94% at 28 weeks. So I knew she was going to be fine. But I think getting the steroid shot really helped her not have complications. She came out, she was breathing on her own, and the only breathing assistance she needs right now is just to slow her breathing down, because she breathes really fast, which is common with babies that small. So, anyways, I'll talk about all her stuff later in another time. That's a long story. So anyways, we get there, my blood pressures are good. They do a ultrasound, and she's breech. She's got her feet down, is what breech means. And breech means that you cannot have a vaginal delivery. You cannot have a natural delivery. simply because it's not safe. It's not safe for her. It's not safe for me. So I was going to have a C-section if she was going to be born that day, or we could try to turn her in a couple of days if I could stay pregnant that long. So the doctor was like, so she's breached, so you're probably going to have a C-section. And I was like, that's okay. Like, whatever she needs. I just want her to be okay. They told me that the goal was for me to stay pregnant for as long as possible. And I was like, absolutely, want to keep this baby in here, keep her growing. And so they told me that the goal was to stay pregnant until 10:30 tomorrow so that they could give me another steroid shot and develop her even more before she was born. So we were just hanging out in the room, you know, taking it easy. We were like, okay, we got this. Like, we're just gonna relax and wait and go to sleep tonight, or try to sleep tonight. Right around, that was 4:30 p.m. Right around 7:30, 8:30, I had been sucking on ice chips for hours because I was starving, and you cannot eat anything if you're potentially going to have a C-section. So I was literally like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry, I'm so hungry. So I was sucking on these ice chips. Right around 7:30, I started vomiting, like just throwing up all of my ice chips. There was nothing else in my stomach, so it was literally just dry heaving after the water would come out. That was awful. My blood pressure started to go back up because I was throwing up, and then my water broke, which was like, what? Why? And I started having contractions, and they were like big enough that they were showing up on the monitor. And I'd been having like Braxton Hicks contractions all throughout my second trimester. And the week that I made it into my third trimester, it was basically like awful pain, terribly, terribly awful pain. And so the nurse was like, I don't think that you can keep going like this. So she called the doctor, and the doctor came in and was talking to me and Kevin and was like, we think we should take the baby now. You're clearly not doing well, and we think this is going to be the best move for mom and baby. So we were like, all right, let's do it. So they gave Kevin scrubs. They got him all gowned up and ready to go. They took me into the OR and gave me a spinal tap to numb me from the chest down so I could be awake, so I could get to see her and everything, which was the most traumatizing thing I have ever experienced in my entire life. While they were trying to give me the spinal tap, I passed out twice. So I got my spinal tap, because when you get your spinal tap, it's kind of like an epidural, but it's different. And you have to like push your back out and like slump over. And you have to like basically make yourself into like a shrimp where you're just kind of like really, so that they can reach your back properly. And then you have to hold really, really still, which was hard because I was shaking the entire time because I was really, really nervous and scared. And I kept passing out. Like I kept telling them I'm going to throw up. So they would bring me a bag to throw up in, and my head would like go down into the bag because I would pass out. So I got my spinal tap, hunched over 3 nurses, smelling ammonia. It was like, oh, it was terrible. So I got my spinal tap and everything, and they brought my husband in, and I was numb. It was perfect. And I laid there, and he was holding my hand and talking to me, telling me I was doing great. He was scared to death. He looked white as a sheet. He was terrified. Which I'm pretty sure if you found out that your wife could potentially die and your baby could too, that you'd be pretty scared. So anyways, we were there for less than 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden we just heard the most beautiful, pathetic, sad little cry I have ever heard. And it was literally just like, eh! It was like so pathetic. But she was perfect. She was absolutely perfect. She was really filled out for being so small, but you know, all 2 pounds and 2 ounces of her was just beautiful. And she was breathing on her own. She was doing really well. She was very feisty. She still is. She's always been feisty. Even when she was in my belly, she was feisty. Like the cats would come and lay on my belly, and she would kick them off. Like she would kick so hard that the cats would be like, what was that? And like leave. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, oh my gosh. The cats are in for a rude awakening when the baby comes home. It was a terrifying experience. But at the end of the day, it ended with something so beautiful and something so meaningful that I can't say I would do it again, but I definitely would, have another baby. she changed everything. She changed our entire world. And it's just amazing and beautiful. I think she's just perfect. So that is the story of how Naomi Grace, 2 pounds, 2 ounces, 14 inches, came into the world and made her dramatic entrance. I did have severe preeclampsia. That is what caused her to come early. And as soon as they took her out, my blood pressure's normalized. Everything was good. Actually, it's the placenta that was causing most of it, because it was like as soon as they took her out, then as soon as they took the placenta out, everything was like, okay, we're good. It's gone now. So just kind of like, okay. So, anyways, that is the story of how Naomi Grace came into the world. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I would like to tell a story about my whole pregnancy, because that was quite an experience in and of itself. And TTC, you know, trying to conceive and our journey to that point. So if you guys would like that or be interested in that, I think I would like to do that, even for my own sake, just to have something to remember it by and to look back, remember the details and kind of how I was feeling throughout the whole thing. A lot of emotions come with something as traumatizing as what happened with us, and I'm still kind of sorting through all of that and trying to figure out how I'm feeling. So anyways, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.